Okay, so today's set of videos is going to show you how to take a single voice synthesizer patch and make it polyphonic. So to start, we have the single voice synthesizer. It has a MIDI note in that's controlling frequency to one of 5 oscillator types. That's being selected over here on the left with the tab object. This is part of the selectable waveform demonstration. Have an ADSR um, that's getting multiplied by the oscillator output, whatever's selected from that output. ADSR is being controlled with on velocity that's being scaled to dB, and the off velocity, which is not inside the split 1 to 127 range, triggers the release phase of the envelope. Couple things that may be a little unusual. I'll mention that I've made the transition time for frequencies really small since we're moving to polyphony, and Portamento doesn't really work with a polyphonic synth. Have envelope presets to change envelope times, envelope settings. I'm using a live.gain object. If you type in live dot, you'll see a number of objects that come up if you have Max for Live or they're built in. And live gain gives you both a gain slider and LED signal display all built into one object. It works in dB, so I'm scaling one of my sliders from my keyboard controller from 0 to 127 is being scaled -70 to 6. So -70 is negative infinity. +6 means you're doubling the power of the output signal. And the final thing that's new is down here, instead of using Easy DAC, I'm using DAC with a start window and stop message. So if you use DAC, you have to send it message to turn it on. Start and stop would be the same as clicking on and off the Easy DAC. Start window, lock the patch. Start window only turns on processing for the open window that the DAC is in and any sub windows of that DAC. So if you notice over here, audio's off because it's white. If I click it on, it's blue, means audio is processing for any open window. If I use start window, it's orange. Only this window and its sub windows is processing. Now that I've turned it on, just so you can see what's going on, note in. And you can watch the converted amp change waveforms. And the noise is a little bit useless without a filter, but just leaving it in for now. So the first step to do is to change this into a polyphonic aware subpatch. And it's kind of like how we did with our basic oscillator operator instrument before, but this we're going to use inlet and outlet objects, and in and out instead of the inlets and outlets, in and out. And in and out can be either for messages or for audio. So we need to see what we want to control from the parent patch and what we want to be sending in. Notes are going to come from the parent patch. So I'm going to unlock and just like this. And I'm going to leave it over here for now because it's going to do something later. Same thing with this. Pull all this down. Disconnect. Move it over for now. It's going to do something else for me. But the body of the patch is where things are going to get operated on. I'm going to get rid of Portamento entirely. I'll go ahead and leave that there, but it's a 5 milliseconds. I might change it to 0. So no pitch Portamento at all. Now I need to have my note and velocity come in. I need to be able to select the waveform, and I need to be able to change presets for my envelope. So there's three things I need to come in. On the output side, I need to send the audio out. So first thing's going to be my note and velocity. And to do that, I'm going to use the object in. And in polyphonic subpatches, you want to number your inlets. These will become specific. And that allows you also to put them out of order in the patch, although I'm not going to do that just for clarity. It also allows you to have message inputs and audio inputs share the same inlet on an object. So that's something that happens a lot with audio objects, but I'm not going to do that for this patch either. So I'm going to send my note information as pitch and velocity all together. That's going to come in as a list, so I'm going to unpack. And that's going to be two integers. And that will go here and here. Easy enough. Over here is my waveform. That's going to be my second inlet. So I'm going to call that N2. Do a little maneuvering around. Now I could put the inlet right over here with the tab, and it would be a little cleaner, but it would also could lose track of it. So I'm not going to do that. Keep that there. And then the third inlet, N3, it's going to come here and it's going to come down. And go into the preset object. Now I have a load mess for my waveform and my envelope preset, so that this will always work. By default, will have a value. But I can now change things. I need at the bottom an audio out. So out tilde 1 always has to be numbered even if there's only one. And that's my audio output from the subpatch. And so now this has become a polyphonic aware subpatch. I'm going to save it, and I've got a folder for polyphonic stuff that I've made. I'm going to say selectable operator, or selectable op. Since it goes into a poly object, the capital is fine, but I'm going to try and be better. Selectable op tilde. And I'm going to save that. I'm going to turn off its processing in this window for now, and transition to how I do this, how I make the patch around it. So going to keep it open for now, just so I can see, but I'm going to create another file. So got a new patcher. And I'm going to be taking some of the things I took away, like note in. And so just so you can see these things, I'll put up numbers, boxes, right? Now, there's tutorials on Poly, and all the MIDI note tutorials they use an envelope that doesn't have a sustain. And if you don't have a sustain, you don't have to keep track of note offs. You can use a simpler way of assigning MIDI voices. But if you want to keep track of note ons and note offs, you have to use the MIDI poly object. So poly, how many voices do you want? Let's say 16. And your steal mode, so what happens if I play 17 voices at one time? Steal mode 1 is going to take the oldest voice and steal from it to assign a new voice. And we see that outputs 3 numbers. Let's hook them up. it's hooking up what is voice number, and then note number, and then velocity, or the three. Now, then I will pack these three things. They're always going to be integers. I can stretch this out so the patch cords are a little more normal. Bring it back up here. And now what I'm going to do is add the poly object, the audio poly object. So poly tilde, then the name of my patch. Before I do that, let's stop. I need to save this in the same folder that I've saved my subpatch, which is my selectable ops. So I'm going to say polysynth selectable. Now I can add the poly object, audio poly. I need to give the patcher name, which is required, and that is selectable op tilde. Then how many instances or how many voices, that's going to match my MIDI poly, so I'm using 16. The rest doesn't have to be filled in. And you'll see it has 3 inlets and 1 outlet. If I lock the patch and double click, it opens up the first instance of the oscillator subpatch, and I can see all those things that I had in. Now, I'm going to make some changes. This is my actual file that I'm editing. I forgot to add some things. Let's go back, select N1, open up my inspector, resize my window a bit, and in the attribute comment description for N, I'm going to type in that this is note, number, and velocity. For the second one, this is waveform. Select. The third one is envelope preset select. I'm going to save this again. Go back over to my other patch, and it will not update until I reload it. So I just have to type the number of voices again. Anything in here would reload the patch. And now if I mouse over, note number and velocity is a hint. Waveform select and envelope preset select. All right, so have that in. Now, what I'm going to do is send the notes to Poly, and to do that, I've got the voice number that I want to assign it to, the MIDI note number, and the velocity. And I have to do a little bit of poly magic, which is to say I need to tell it to send to a voice and send the information. So I'm going to use a message. It's called target. Target lets you pick out a specific instance of however many polyphonic instances you have. I have 16. But what I want is whatever voice number this poly has generated to be my target. Then I hit a comma, because that says the next information is going to be sent to the voice number. Okay? Let's say then the second item and the third item are my note number and velocity. And to get an idea of what's going on, let me play a note. So if I play C, you can see the 48 and 117 goes in. Now this is not working because I didn't get velocity in. Here we go. So play C. That's voice 1, the note, the velocity, and when I let go, voice 1, note, and velocity 0. So let's play 2 notes. Let's play D, and now an F, and you see voice 3 is 53 at that velocity. If I release the D, it's going to know that I released voice 2. And now when I release the F, it's going to know I released voice 3. Okay, because I want to be able to send that information to my subpatch to turn the envelope on and off. So all this comes out into target. Target sends to poly. I'm going to use my output that I used in my subpatch. So let's go take this, copy it, and bring this in. It's my audio out, which I did not assign a comment. That's okay. 2 inputs, so I can get stereo. The other things I need in here will be my waveform select and preset, but if I did everything correctly, this should work at this point. So I'm going to lock the patch, start the window. I've got the orange over here. And I'll let go. Turn the volume down a little. All right. And you have to watch out because it's mixing all the outputs into a single outlet here at the poly and coming to the gain. So it's possible, even though an individual voice wouldn't be overloading, the combination of voices would if I hit a bunch of voices. So I have a polyphonic synth. I can make 2 more adjustments. Let's go back over here. I want to keep this in the patch, and I'll explain why, but I'll bring this out for now, just this part. Unlock it, paste, pull it over. That's my waveform select. And I still want to have a default waveform selected for everything. And then my envelope preset, which for now can just be a number. And I'm going to take load mess 1. And a number I can type in. And that becomes my 3rd inlet. Lock the patch. Now I can select a triangle wave. And I've made a mistake. So I changed waves and nothing is happening because I didn't tell what voice to change. And so the only one that I played is changing. And it's cycling through. Poly is kind of stupid. It just kind of goes through a voice. It doesn't know if it's free or not. It just goes to the next voice and works its way around. I'll have to keep so you can hear there are some square waves, but not all the voices are playing a square wave. So I made a mistake, and it has to do with this target message. So I want to change the waveform and envelope presets for every instance of the subpatch. That is target 0, then a comma, $1. So I want this number to come in, and target 0 says send this to all versions of the patch. And after the comma is what gets sent. And then same thing. This is my envelope preset. So now that I have target, lock the patch. Now if I select triangle, every note I play for every voice is a sine wave. And if I change envelopes to say 3, no, it was only. it's something short. 2 is also has no sustain. But it's a longer decay. And so now I have simple control. I have polyphonic. If I double click on polyphonic now, whatever the last note that played is what's going to open up. And you can see voice 1 just played. That's what opens up. Play 2 more notes. And I used voice 14 was the last thing to register. And that's going to be the copy that opens. I can edit my subpatch by clicking on the edit and unlock if I want to update the attribute comment for the outlet. I can say signal out. I can save this, but again, it will not update until I do something to change and make it reload. So I just usually type the number again. Now it says signal out. And I have a patch. Polysynth selectable. I can save it and it lets me play multiple notes. Selectable waveform oscillator, envelope. Each voice has the same oscillator, but I can have as many voices as I specify. Up here, I need to match this poly voice number with this poly tilde voice number, but processing power is my only limitation here. So that's all I have. Thanks.